What if the very moment you stopped explaining yourself was the exact second your enemies realized they had already lost? What if your silence wasn't weakness, but the most terrifying weapon you never knew you possessed? What if everything you thought broke you was actually breaking you, open for something the world has never seen before? Listen to me right now. You didn't stumble onto this message by accident. This isn't random. This isn't background noise while you scroll through your feed looking for anything to fill that void you feel at 2 a.m. when the world goes quiet and you're left alone with that voice inside your chest that keeps whispering, "There's more, there has to be more." That voice, that's not doubt. That's destiny knocking, and it's getting louder. Here's what they won't tell you. You were chosen for a purpose so dangerous, so powerful, that the enemy had to convince you it didn't exist. They couldn't destroy you, so they distracted you. They couldn't break you, so they made you believe you were already broken. But here's the truth. Bomb they never saw coming. Silence isn't surrender. Silence is strategy. Imagine this. You're walking through life with a quiet fire burning in your chest. Most people never see it. Some mock it. Others fear it without understanding why. But you feel it. Every single day. That heat, that pull, that knowing that you're not like everyone else and you never will be. This isn't just any fire. This is the fire of divine purpose. And chosen one, it's about to burn through every lie they ever told you about who you are. Right now, before we go 1 second further, I need to pause and say something from my heart. Thank you. Thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and drop a 777 in the comments right now. Let the universe know you're listening. Let me know you're ready. Because here's what's happening today. We're ripping off the mask. We're exposing the trap. We're awakening the warrior inside you that's been sleeping under the weight of other people's expectations, their doubts, their fear of what you might become if you ever truly woke up. The time for playing small is over. The season of apologizing for your gifts has expired. In the chapter where you needed their approval, that book just closed. Today, you rise. Not loud, not desperate, just inevitable. So I'm asking you one more time, are you ready to stop running from who you were born to be? Because the universe is done whispering. It's time to listen, or regret every breath you take from this moment forward. Have you ever wondered why certain people seem threatened by your very existence, even when you've done nothing to harm them? Have you ever noticed how the closer you get to your purpose, the more resistance shows up, disguised as people you once trusted? What if I told you that the attacks you're facing right now aren't random acts of cruelty, but calculated moves by those who recognize something in you that terrifies them? Let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. Right now, at this very moment, there's a group of people who've been watching you. studying you. They've never encountered anyone like you before, and that scares them more than anything they've ever faced. Because deep down, they know what you haven't fully realized yet. You carry something they can never possess, no matter how hard they try to imitate it, steal it, or destroy it. The Bible tells us in Psalm 23:4, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Notice it doesn't say, "If you walk through the valley," it says, "even though," because the valley is guaranteed. The shadow is part of the journey, but so is the protection. So is the presence. So is the purpose that makes you untouchable, even when they think they've got you cornered. You see, there are moments in your life, moments you probably remember right now, as I'm speaking, when you felt completely isolated, rejected, misunderstood. Maybe it was at work, where your ideas were dismissed. Maybe it was in your own family, where your dreams were mocked. Maybe it was in your church, where your questions were treated like rebellion instead of hunger for deeper truth. And in those moments, you probably asked yourself, "What's wrong with me? Why can't I just be like everyone else?" But what if I told you that those very moments, those painful, lonely, confusing seasons, were not signs that something was wrong with you? What if those were the exact signs that you were never meant to blend in? You were born to stand out. You are the chosen one. And the people attacking you right now, they've known it longer than you have. Here's what happens when God marks someone for a divine assignment. The enemy doesn't ignore them. He can't, because your presence alone disrupts his entire operation. You don't even have to say a word. Your energy, your spirit, your refusal to bow to their games, it exposes everything they've been hiding. And when exposure is inevitable, attack becomes their only option. Think about Joseph. His own brothers threw him in a pit and sold him into slavery. Why? Because he had dreams they couldn't control and a favor they couldn't fake. Think about David. King Saul spent years hunting him through the wilderness, sending armies after a shepherd boy with a slingshot. Why? Because he saw the anointing on David's life and knew his own counterfeit crown was already slipping. Think about Jesus himself. The religious leaders of his day couldn't debate him, couldn't outsmart him, couldn't diminish him. So what did they do? They conspired. They plotted. They formed a jealous group determined to take him down. And here you are, centuries later, walking through the same pattern. Because chosen ones don't get a free pass. They get a target on their back. But here's where it gets beautiful. Here's where the story shifts. Like a seed planted deep in the ground, you were buried, hidden, covered in darkness. And for a long time, it looked like nothing was happening. People walked right over you. They forgot you were even there. But beneath the surface, something powerful was taking place. Roots were growing. Deep, unshakable roots that reached down into the presence of God Himself. And now, right now, it's your season to break through that soil and rise toward the sun. The isolation wasn't punishment. It was preparation. The rejection wasn't failure. It was filtration. God was removing everyone who couldn't go where you're headed. And the attacks you're experiencing now, they're not signs that you're losing. They're confirmation that you're about to win. Because jealous people don't waste their energy on nobodies. They target the ones who threaten their false sense of power. They go after the ones who carry something real. And the fact that they're coming for you with everything they've got should tell you something. You're closer than you've ever been. I want you to think about something right now. In the silence of your suffering, in those long nights when you couldn't sleep because the pain was too heavy and the betrayal too fresh, what has God whispered to you? What promises has He spoken over your life that seemed impossible in the natural but undeniable in the spirit? Because I guarantee you, the group targeting you right now has heard those same whispers. Not from God, but through the grapevine, through the spiritual realm, through that unexplainable knowing that you are not who you appear to be on the surface. They've never met anyone like you, because you're not like anyone. You don't operate by the same rules. You don't chase the same validation. You don't break when they expect you to break. And that makes you dangerous, not because you're trying to be, but because your very existence challenges the lies they've built their entire identity on. Let me be clear about something. This isn't about you being better than anyone else. This is about you being different, set apart, anointed for a specific assignment that requires a specific kind of endurance. And the people who've been coming against you, they're not your enemies. They're your evidence. Evidence that what God said about you is true. Evidence that the calling on your life is real. Evidence that you are exactly where you're supposed to be, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. Romans 8:31 asks the question that should be echoing in your spirit right now. If God is for us, who can be against us? Not if God might be. Not if we're good enough. If God is for us, present tense, active tense. Right now, in the middle of the attack, in the center of the conspiracy, God is for you. And if He's for you, it doesn't matter how many of them are against you. The math doesn't add up in their favor. So here's what I need you to understand as we move forward. The group targeting you is going down, not because you're going to fight them, not because you're going to expose them, but because they're fighting against something they can't see and don't understand. They're swinging at the anointing. And every punch they throw is sealing their own fate. But the question isn't whether they'll fall. The question is, will you be standing when they do? Why does your silence make them more nervous than anything you could ever say? What is it about your refusal to react that sends them into a frenzy, scrambling to provoke you to pull you back into their chaos? And why are the people who once dismissed you now obsessively watching your every move, waiting for you to slip, hoping you'll break? Because they finally figured out what you've known all along. Your silence isn't weakness, it's warfare. And they're losing a battle they didn't even know they started. Let me tell you something that's going to change the way you see everything that's happened to you. Every betrayal, every attack, every moment they tried to break you down and make you defend yourself. They weren't trying to hurt you. They were trying to control you, because as long as they could keep you talking explaining, justifying your existence. They had power over you. But the moment you stopped playing their game, the moment you chose silence over self-defense, the entire chessboard flipped. And now, they're terrified. Proverbs 17:28 says, "Even fools are thought wise, if they keep silent and discerning, if they hold their tongues." But this isn't about playing it safe. This isn't about biting your tongue to keep the peace. This is about understanding that there's a weapon in your arsenal that most people never learn to use. Strategic silence, calculated restraint, the kind of stillness that makes your enemies reveal themselves while you remain untouchable. Think about it. When was the last time you felt pressured to explain yourself, to defend your choices, to prove you weren't what they accused you of being? And what happened when you finally stopped? When you looked them in the eye and said nothing? The accusation hung in the air with nowhere to land. The lie had no one to argue with. And suddenly, they were the ones scrambling for words, trying to fill the void your silence created. That's power, chosen one. That's the kind of authority that doesn't need validation, because it knows its source. You see, they feared you when they thought you were weak, when they believed your kindness was naivety, when they mistook your patience for passivity. They made their move based on a version of you that no longer exists. They set their trap for someone who would react, who would explode, who would give them ammunition to use against you. But you didn't. You evolved. And now they're standing there with a cage built for a mouse, staring at a lion. Let me take you back to the chessboard for a moment. In the game of life, you were never just another piece. You were the king. Not the queen who moves in all directions, chasing every threat. Not the knight making erratic jumps, trying to prove something. You were the king. The piece that doesn't move often, but when it does, the entire board shifts. Every other piece has to recalculate. Every strategy has to be rewritten. Because your move wasn't loud, it was final. That's what's happening right now in your life. You made one move. One silent, sharp, unapologetic move. And the universe responded like thunder. The people who laughed behind your back stopped laughing. The ones who counted you out started counting their losses. And the jealous group that targeted you, they're realizing too late that they picked the wrong one. Ecclesiastes 3:7 tells us there's a time to be silent and a time to speak. But here's what most people miss. The silence comes first, not because you don't have anything to say, but because silence is where strategy is born. Silence is where you observe, where you listen, where you let people show you exactly who they are without you having to ask. And when you finally speak, when you finally make your move, it's not emotional, it's surgical. Picture this. You're standing in the center of a battlefield. Chaos all around you, swords clashing, people screaming, everyone moving frantically trying to survive. But you're standing still, calm, centered, not because you're frozen in fear, but because you know something they don't. The battle isn't won by the one who swings the most. It's won by the one who swings at the right moment. The calm before the chaos is often the most powerful force on the field. And that's where you are right now. Your enemies are exhausted. They've thrown everything at you. Lies, manipulation, public humiliation, private sabotage, and you're still standing. not because you fought back with their weapons, but because you refused to fight on their terms. You chose a different battlefield, one where silence speaks louder than their noise, where your presence is more threatening than their absence, where your peace is more disruptive than their chaos. And now, they don't know what to do with you. I want you to think about something right now. Think about the last time someone tried to provoke you and you didn't take the bait. Remember how uncomfortable they got, how they kept pushing, kept poking, kept trying to get a reaction out of you. That wasn't persistence. That was panic. Because people who thrive on chaos need you to engage. They need you to play their game. And when you refuse, when you stay silent and steady, their entire strategy collapses. That's not weakness, dear one. That's mastery. Jesus himself understood this power. When he stood before Pilate, accused of crimes he didn't commit, facing a crowd that wanted his blood, he said nothing. Isaiah 53:7 prophesied it centuries earlier. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Not because he couldn't defend himself, but because his silence was part of the plan. His restraint was his authority, and every word they spoke against him only sealed their own fate. You're walking in that same anointing right now. The accusations against you, they're not sticking because they're not true. The lies being spread, they're boomeranging back to the source. The group targeting you, they're going down. Not because you're fighting them, but because they're fighting something bigger than you. They're fighting the hand of God on your life. And that's a battle no one wins. But here's where it gets even more powerful. Your silence isn't just protection. It's preparation. While they've been busy talking, you've been busy building. While they've been spreading gossip, you've been gaining wisdom. While they've been trying to destroy your reputation, God has been elevating your position. And the moment you step into what He's prepared for you, their mouths will drop. Not because you proved them wrong, but because your life became the proof they couldn't argue with. I want you to do something right now. Think of one situation in your life where your silence has already made people listen, where your refusal to engage forced them to reconsider, where your stillness spoke louder than any argument ever could. Drop it in the comments below, because I guarantee you've already used this weapon. You just didn't realize how powerful it was until now. Your silence holds more power than you've ever realized. It's time to use it to shift the world around you. Not through force, not through revenge, but through the kind of quiet confidence that makes kingdoms tremble and enemies retreat. So, the question isn't whether they'll stop targeting you. The question is what happens when you finally make your next move. Do you remember the exact moment when the person you trusted most looked you in the eye and chose someone else over you? Can you still feel that weight in your chest when you realized the people you called family were the ones spreading lies about you behind closed doors? And have you ever wondered why the deepest wounds always come from the closest range, from the ones who knew exactly where to aim? Let me tell you something that's going to hit you hard, but it needs to be said. Betrayal isn't random. It's strategic. The enemy doesn't send strangers to destroy you. He sends the familiar, the trusted, The ones you let past your walls because you believed they earned their place there. Because a stranger's rejection stings for a moment, but when someone who knows your secrets, who's eaten at your table, who's seen you at your weakest, when they turn on you, that kind of pain doesn't just hurt. It rewires you. And that's exactly what happened, isn't it? There were times when you were betrayed, times when people left you in your darkest hour, not when things got a little tough, but when you were on your knees, barely breathing, fighting just to make it through another day. That's when they walked away. That's when they sided with your enemies. That's when they took everything you confided in them and weaponized it against you. They thought you would break. They were counting on it. They had front row seats waiting for your collapse. But you didn't break, did you? Something happened instead, something they never saw coming. You grew stronger, not louder, not angrier, stronger. There's a difference. Psalm 41:9 captures this pain perfectly. Even my close friend, someone I trusted, one who shared my bread, has turned against me. David wrote those words. A king, a warrior, a man after God's own heart. And even he knew the sting of betrayal from those closest to him. So if you're sitting there right now, feeling like you're the only one who's been stabbed in the back by the people you loved most, let me stop you right there. You're in the company of every chosen one who ever walked this earth. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery. Moses was betrayed by his own people in the wilderness after he led them out of bondage. Jesus was betrayed by Judas with a kiss. A kiss. The ultimate sign of love, twisted into the ultimate act of treachery. So, no, you're not imagining it. You're not being dramatic. And you're definitely not alone. But here's what I need you to understand. The betrayal wasn't an accident. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't even about you, not really. It was about what you carry. See, people don't betray nobodies. They betray the ones who make them feel small, just by existing. They betray the ones whose light exposes their darkness. They betray the ones they can't control, can't manipulate, can't keep in the box they built for them. Your betrayal was a compliment wrapped in a curse. It meant you were threatening something. You were disrupting something. You were becoming something they couldn't afford to let rise. Now I know what you're thinking. If that's true, why does it still hurt so much? Why does it still wake you up at 3 a.m., replaying the moment you found out? Why does their name still make your stomach drop even years later? Because betrayal doesn't just wound your heart. It attacks your ability to trust. It makes you question your discernment. It makes you wonder if you'll ever be safe enough to love anyone fully again. And that's the real trap, not the betrayal itself, but what it tries to do to you after. It wants to make you bitter, closed off, suspicious of everyone. It wants to convince you that if you got hurt once, you'll get hurt again. So why bother? Why believe in anyone? Why invest in anything? Why hope? But Romans 8:28 didn't stutter when it said, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." All things. Not some things. Not the easy things. All things. Even the betrayal. Even the backstabbing. Even the moments you thought would destroy you forever. Because here's the revelation moment you need to hear. The betrayal was never meant to break you. It was meant to break you open. Like a seed cracked apart so the life inside it can finally emerge. Like a cocoon torn away so the butterfly can spread its wings. You had to be broken open so the light of God could shine through the cracks they created. They thought they were destroying you, but God was using them to reveal you. Think about it. Before the betrayal, you were loyal to a fault. You gave people chance after chance. You made excuses for behavior you should have called out. You stayed in rooms that were suffocating you because you didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. You were so focused on keeping the peace that you forgot to protect your own spirit. And then the betrayal came, and it shattered that version of you, the version that settled, the version that tolerated disrespect because you didn't want to seem difficult, the version that dimmed your light so others wouldn't feel intimidated. That version had to die, and the betrayal was the funeral. But funerals aren't endings chosen one, they're transitions. And what rose up from the ashes of who you used to be is someone they've never seen before, someone who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't prove, someone who knows their worth isn't up for debate, someone who moves in silence and lets their life do the talking. Someone who's been through hell and came out refined, not ruined. When your enemies thought they had won, they didn't know you were already evolving into something unstoppable. Your pain became your power. Every tear you cried in secret watered the roots of your purpose. Every sleepless night sharpened your discernment. Every moment you wanted to quit, but kept going anyway, built a resilience in you that can't be taught in any classroom or bought with any amount of money. You didn't just survive the betrayal, you studied it. You learned what fake looks like up close. You memorized the patterns of people who smile in your face while plotting your downfall. You developed an instinct that can spot a counterfeit from a mile away. And now you move different. You love different. You trust different. Not because you're broken, but because you're bulletproof. 2 Corinthians 4:8-9 says it like this: We are hard-pressed on every side but not crushed, perplexed but not in despair, persecuted but not abandoned, struck down but not destroyed. You were struck down. Let's be honest about that. The betrayal knocked you off your feet, but it didn't destroy you. And the fact that you're still here, still fighting, still believing there's more, that's the proof that God's hand never left you. I want you to think about something right now. Think about the person who betrayed you. Picture their face. Remember what they did. And now, ask yourself this question. If you could go back and prevent it from happening, would you? Would you trade the wisdom you have now for the innocence you had then? Would you give up the strength you've gained to go back to being naive? I didn't think so, because as much as it hurt, as much as it cost you, the betrayal gave you something they can never take back. It gave you clarity. It gave you freedom. It gave you permission to stop carrying people who were never meant to go where you're headed. And most importantly, it gave you a story. a testimony, a weapon that will help someone else survive what almost buried you. Type "men" in the comments right now if you've ever turned your pain into your purpose. If you've ever taken what was meant to destroy you and used it to build something they never saw coming. Because that's what chosen ones do. We don't just survive, we transform. But here's the question that's going to set up everything that comes next. What if the betrayal wasn't the end of the test? What if it was just the beginning? What if everything you've been through, every betrayal, every setback, every moment you thought would destroy you? What if it was all leading to this exact second? What if the reason you survived when you shouldn't have, the reason you're still standing when logic said you'd fall, what if that reason is about to reveal itself in a way that changes everything? And what if the next breath you take is the one that shifts you from survival mode into the most powerful season of your entire life? Listen to me very carefully right now. You didn't choose this life. Stop thinking you did. Stop carrying the weight of a decision you never made. This life chose you. Before you were formed in your mother's womb, before you took your first breath, before you knew pain or purpose or betrayal, God looked across all of eternity and said, "That one, I need that one for what's coming." Jeremiah 1:5 says it plainly. "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Set you apart. Not because you were lucky, not because you were perfect, but because what's inside you is required for what's ahead. You were selected for a mission greater than you can imagine. And every single thing that's happened to you has been preparing you for this moment. The trials weren't random acts of cruelty. They were curriculum. The betrayals weren't accidents. They were assignments. God was putting you through a training program that most people would never survive because most people aren't being prepared for what you're being prepared for. And now, right now, you're ready. You might not feel ready. You might still have doubts, but feelings don't determine readiness. Fruit does. And the fruit of everything you've endured is ripening right in front of you. You want to know why you felt so isolated lately, why you've been pulled away from crowds, separated from people who used to feel like home, why your circle has shrunk to almost nothing. Because God is clearing the stage. He's removing everyone who can't handle what's about to happen in your life. He's taking out the spectators, the critics, the jealous observers who would have tried to take credit for what only He gets glory for. Think about the phoenix for a moment, not the myth, the message. The phoenix doesn't just rise from the ashes. It burns first, completely, utterly, until there's nothing left but embers and smoke. And in that moment, when everything looks dead, when all hope seems lost, that's when the resurrection begins. Not before the fire, after it. Because the fire was never meant to destroy the phoenix. It was meant to reveal what the phoenix really was. All along, immortal, unstoppable, eternal. You are that phoenix chosen one. The trials were not sent to burn you. They were sent to refine you, to burn away everything that wasn't truly you. The people-pleasing, the self-doubt, the need for external validation, the fear of standing alone. All of that had to go, and it hurt like hell. But now you're walking in your purpose, and no one can take that away from you. Not with lies, not with attacks, not with jealousy or sabotage or betrayal. Because what God has refined, no human can tarnish. Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you." Not some weapons, every weapon. Not sometimes, always. Because you're not operating on human strength anymore. You're not moving on your own authority. You're walking with the full power of heaven behind you. And when heaven backs you, hell has no choice but to retreat. But let me tell you something that's going to blow your mind. Right now, at this very moment, there's a divine force working behind the scenes. You can't see it with your natural eyes. You can't track it with logic, but it's there. Moving, shifting, aligning. Every person who betrayed you is being repositioned. Every door that closed in your face is being replaced with one that leads somewhere better. Every delay that frustrated you is revealing itself as divine protection from something that would have destroyed you. Romans 8:31 asks the question that should be thundering in your spirit right now. If God is for us, who can be against us? And the answer isn't philosophical, it's practical. Nobody, not your enemies, not your past, not your failures, not even yourself. Because when God decides it's your time, it's your time. And all of creation has to bow to that timing. You're about to walk into your new season. Not someday. Not eventually. Now. And I need you to understand something about this season. It's not going to look like what you expected. It's not going to feel like what you prayed for. It's going to be bigger, be stranger, more uncomfortable, and more glorious than anything you could have scripted for yourself. Because your imagination is limited by your experience. But God's plans are limited by nothing. Ephesians 3:20 puts it like this: "Now, to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us," immeasurably more. Not a little more, not slightly better than you hoped. Immeasurably, beyond measurement, beyond calculation, beyond anything your mind can currently comprehend. So when you step into this next season, and it doesn't look like what you thought, don't panic. Don't shrink back. Don't second guess whether you heard God correctly. You did. You just underestimated what he was capable of doing through someone like you. Now I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to really sit with it. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Not if you hoped you wouldn't fail. If you knew with absolute certainty that success was guaranteed, what would you attempt? What dream would you chase? What risk would you take? What conversation would you have? What door would you walk through? Because here's the truth. They don't want you to know. You can't fail, not in the way you think. Chosen ones don't fail. They learn, they pivot, they recalibrate. But they don't fail because their purpose isn't dependent on their perfection. It's dependent on their obedience. And every time you take a step in faith, even if that step looks messy or uncertain or terrifying, God calls that success. Proverbs 16:9 says, "In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. You're not responsible for knowing the whole path. You're responsible for taking the next step. And every step you take in obedience is a step deeper into your destiny. Every risk you take in faith is a doorway into something greater. Every moment you choose trust over fear is a moment you're cooperating with the divine plan that's been in motion since before time began. This is your reclamation moment, not your redemption. You were never lost. This is you reclaiming what was always yours. Your voice, your authority, your right to take up space in rooms that tried to erase you. Your permission to dream bigger than the limitations other people tried to place on you. Your divine assignment that no human gets to vote on. You are stepping into your purpose with all the power of heaven behind you. And that's not hype. That's not motivational fluff. That's biblical reality. You're a child of the Most High God. You're a joint heir with Christ. You're seated in heavenly places. You're hidden with Christ in God. And when you finally start walking like you believe that the world won't know what hit it, type 777 in the comments right now if you're ready to step into your purpose, if you're done playing small, if you're finished apologizing for taking up space, if you're ready to stop asking permission and start walking in the authority God already gave you. Because this moment right here, this is the pivot point. This is where you decide whether you're going to keep living like a victim of your past or start walking like the warrior you've always been.